Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Happy New Year and welcome to the Gameweek 20 pod of the FPL Wire. I'm your host, Zoph, and I'm joined by my co host, Pras. A little birdie told me that you've had wood for 3 days now, Pras.
I have had. It's the new year. Why not? We all need to treat ourselves. So had a little bit of a end of the year treat. And so yes, and also to caveat, this will be the last wood joke for the foreseeable future, right, Zoff?
Yes. We agreed prior to the pod that we are going to be referring to him only as Chris going forward for my own sanity and for some credibility of the pod, at least.
Exactly, exactly. By the way, Zoff, the video. I think you need to switch on for me.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. Bye.
Yeah,
I think it should be
that's
fine
fine.
now.
Yeah, now it's good. Now it's good.
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
happy New Year to all our listeners. Hope everyone's had a good game week. Hope everyone has had a good break with the family. What have you been up to, Zoff?
Just a light New Year's. Nothing much on the 31st. Yesterday, got a nice workout and had a dinner with friends and some drinks. Little bit worse for wear today. Just before coming on, I was telling you practically half asleep, but we are here. Looking forward to it, and it's just a couple of days now for Premier League football.
Exactly, and then it actually quietens down fair bit. Like we'll come to the schedule, but FA Cup weekend start to come into it, so a little bit of a more chiller January, February.
Yep. Did you feel the quality in the league has dropped a little bit over the last few weeks? I could feel that in terms of fatigue and sharpness. I thought teams are missing a little bit over this period. It usually happens, right, at this time of year.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it depends. Sometimes we say quality drops. Does that mean that they get more defensive and the attack is not that great, or is it that the drop off is in defense and there are more goals? I think it depended on the match. Like if you look at Liverpool, they're sharp as ever. I think with Arsenal, with injuries and stuff, you can see a little bit of like grinding out results, which is also fine. So yeah, I think it's a good period to sort of look back and try to assess. And so many suspensions, man. Like we've been talking about game week 19. Remember, guys, 4 yellows. Everybody says, don't worry, come on, people. Players know what they're doing, and bloody, it happens all at the same time. The Cunha ban, the who else did got banned?
Well,
The
the Cunha
Rogers
one
got
doesn't
banned.
count because that's not a yellow card accumulation. That's been pending for a long time. But yeah,
Yeah, but it happens at the same time when
yeah.
the others happen as well. Timber as well. So yeah,
And Rogers is a big one, obviously,
Rogers was a big one. He's
because Leicester
created.
this week. By the teams not being so good, I've been talking about our clubs primarily. I think Chelsea and Manchester United we fared similarly. Thought I would have a lot of jokes to make this pod, but nope, can't really.
You were the same. You were the same. I mean, obviously different spectrums of bad, right? I mean, Man United have been horrendous, but is it a case of maybe January, couple of signings help out a little bit? But yeah, the less we talk about Man United, the better, actually.
We will talk about Man United a little bit when we come to the midfielders section, talk about Bruno, but let's jump right into it. Start up with our sponsor plug.
Yep. So all the stats that you will see on the pod and otherwise, Zoff did an excellent video as well on the members area and the stats that we do a game week review every week. That is all from the Scout members area. So if you would like to join and become a member, there is a link to join in the description below in our pod, and that would help us out. And it's a new year, so it's a good time to start because you get the whole month of January.
Fantastic. Now, let's just start up first. Let's look at the schedule first. And there's not much right now. Like you said, we are towards the end, but there are some cup games coming that we need to take note of.
Yeah. So after game week 20, basically there's no Premier League football for 10 days. So there is a Carabao Cup semi-final right after game week 20, and the only four teams involved there are Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs, and Newcastle. So this is the first midweek that will start to give us clues on game week 29, right? Because whoever makes the final will blank, which is going to be huge. Like we have so many players from Newcastle, Arsenal, Liverpool, and even Villa. The teams they play are also Chelsea, Villa, Crystal Palace. So it's going to be a mess. Game week 29. Then you have the FA Cup third round, which is the next weekend. And the thing with that is, of course, FA Cup blanks, we know, we are used to them. But this time it's only the semi-final that will create a blank. But I think more importantly for rhythm, for understanding teams, like I think you mentioned before the pod, you'll get to see Arsenal like two more times, how they are with Jesus. Is Nwaneri basically going to, play a lot more minutes on the right? What does that impact Havertz? How does that impact Martinelli? So that kind of stuff is something to look out for.
Yeah, because Arsenal are a big team. We'll talk about them on the ticker. I think there are some opportunities emerging there. Somebody like Jesus versus Wood is a real question for people this week. And it's a classic stats versus a reliable. It's a dull versus maverick pick, I think, with Jesus and Wood. Let's just jump right into it. What made you go for Chris over, let's say, somebody like Jesus?
I just think it's the same principle that I've had in the last 2-3 transfers, that whoever I'm bringing in, even if they blank 3 game weeks, I'm not going to take them out for the long term. And so what I don't want is basically I get somebody and then I have to deal with that problem again. So you could argue that Bruno is starting to become a problem, but he got a red card. And Man United are not looking so good, but I still am going to be patient, not because I think Bruno is amazing. The principle is that I want to pick the player who I could even rely on up to Gameweek 29. So I'm not picking them because of Gameweek 29. What I'm saying is now I don't want to be spending transfers. So with Jesus, it feels like there is a lot of upside. He's probably the go-to guy. He's magnetic a little bit, when he's in form in terms of getting at the end of stuff. So it's great, but at some point, you cannot tell me by game week 26 he keeps his place. So with Chris Wood, it just feels like you have a guy who's playing for the what are they second or third
Second,
in the league.
I think. Arsenal probably went back up, so probably. Third.
So they went back up. So third in the league on penalties. He's going to get minutes. And basically, there was a point at which when I was mucking around with transfers, I realized him and João Pedro, I could basically play one of them for the next 5 weeks, and it would be absolutely fine. Like I have João Pedro, so for my particular team, basically I can look at playing Chris Wood this week. I can play João Pedro next week when Chris Wood has Liverpool, João Pedro has Ipswich. I can play Chris Wood the week after when João Pedro is away to Man United. You can play both as well, but it's a good fixture for them. Then when João Pedro is away to Nottingham Forest, I would rather play Chris Wood at home. So basically I found a nice way where I have a top 5 midfield, where I really like my 5 midfielders. I will play them, play them, and I'll rotate this cheap striker with Isak. That's basically the play I found. So I don't need to have a Jesus and play him every single week.
So the fixtures for Forest, I'm just having a look at them now. For the audio guys, it's now Wolves, Liverpool, Southampton, Bournemouth. The next 4 to 5 are all right, but then they sort of take a downturn. It's Fulham, Newcastle, Arsenal, and Man City around 25 to 28. That's when you sort of worry. Will you be trying to rotate him around then? Or I think he's actually perfectly fine. We thought that, for example, that Everton away is a difficult fixture, but he got a goal and assist there. You just can't predict when this Forest surge is going to end.
Yeah. So look, as of now, I will not play him in all 4 of those tough games. So Fulham away, could play him. Newcastle away, probably not. Arsenal home, probably not. But Man City home, maybe. It's fine. Then game week 29 is the money game, which is Ipswich, which is the blank game week. So it feels like he's fine. And to be honest with you, Zoph, I'm like 11K now, right? I could see that a lot of the transfers are going to Wood. I have no idea who that right pick is. It could be Jesus, it could be even Jackson, it could be anyone else. I just felt like if I'm getting the pick that is going to be the second highest owned striker, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. Like I'm not in that position where I need to chase that third striker. I can completely understand people who want to chase going for a Jesus as well.
That's a completely fair point, and I do agree with you. In a comfortable position, if you're happy with your rank, I think Chris Wood is a very nice shield, because while he may not get multiple returns over the next 6 game weeks, you wouldn't bet against him getting, let's say, 3 goals. 4 goals, something like that. Even though the attacking numbers as such, right, they've been poor all season,
Very
but
poor.
the goals just keep going in.
Exactly. I mean, 0.29 non-pen XG is not great, and basically no attacking, no assist threat. But when he scores, he gets bonus. So it's a bit like he's, till when do you think the party goes on? And you have to look at the list above him as well, right? So if you go above Chris Wood, Stan Larson, fixture's terrible. Raul Jimenez, minutes are questionable. Yeah. He's still okay. I think he's still fine. But at some point, if there is a pattern where either he's missing midweek minutes or he's missing the easier games, basically because he's protected for the Chelsea games and the Liverpool games, I don't want that, right? Then Wissa, tougher games, but you can still go for him. Numbers are good. Cunha is out. Havertz missing minutes. Mateta is an option, but I would argue Eze, Sarr might be maybe better picks, but Mateta is fine as well. Jackson, I want to talk about Jackson separately later. Vardy, Leicester look rubbish. I already have João Pedro. Gakpo's minutes don't look great. Bournemouth's fixtures are looking bad. Solanke isn't looking. I'm going up the list. Who else?
Nobody else appeals. No, not really. And first up, let's talk about Cunha in terms of why we think he's a sell. And I do agree with the tweet also you put out. The fixtures for Wolves after Forest, right after that it comes back on Newcastle, Chelsea, Arsenal, Villa, Liverpool, Bournemouth. That's bad. You got to get rid.
I mean, these are the top 6 teams in the league, right?
Pretty much for that, and even for you look at the underlying numbers for defense, they're all teams that are tight over here. They're all in the top half of the table in terms of XGC as well.
Yep. And I think, look, if somebody's sitting there with Cunha and they've really enjoyed his points and they want to hold him, similar to Chris Wood, right? Maybe you play him, it's fine. Like, I'm not saying has to be an out, but it feels like it's a right window to get him out. Like for 7 odd million, I don't even know what his price is now. Where it just feels like you can do more with that money. Like upgrade your midfield. He's 7 million now, so he's the most expensive out of the cheap strikers bracket. He's not even in the cheap strikers bracket anymore as such. So you should be doing more with the money, and options exist.
Agreed. So let's talk about some of the other picks now. Like you mentioned, let's touch upon Jackson. Another question that people have been asking me is, should I sell Jackson for the likes of Wood? And I wrote an article about it on Scout today. I don't think so. I think the fixtures for Jackson are still quite good now. Obviously, Chelsea are in a bit of a slump, but there's no midweek for a while now. Even the turnaround we talk about in 21-22, I think it's like a Tuesday, Monday turnaround, which is the same as a Sunday, Saturday. You can't effectively count it as a midweek fixture. I think Maresca might have finally learned his lesson that the team doesn't really function without Jackson in it. Now, there's no threat of the 5 yellow cards, which might have played into his thinking in the Ipswich game, right? That potentially saved Jackson for the tougher Palace game. That's not a concern as well. And the fixtures, let me read it. In the short term, they are Palace, Bournemouth, Wolves, Man City, West Ham, and Brighton. I like Brighton for Chelsea in particular. We have the runners. Then you have Villa, Southampton, Leicester, Arsenal. I think there are 4 or 5 good fixtures there for a team that's still consistently hitting the XG numbers in the top 3, top 4. There's no rush to get rid, I think, unless you specifically need the money to upgrade in midfield. Let's say a Rodgers to a Gordon, something like that.
Exactly. So in fact, you've hit the nail on the head. I had the position to go Cunha straight to Jackson, or basically get instead of Cunha, get a Wood, and you can do Rodgers up to Gordon. So basically, that was the interplay I had in mind. And if you go to the Lego Mane chart, I just wanted to make a point on Jackson. Basically, the thing with him is the fixtures are absolutely fine. He's an absolutely easy hold. I can't believe people are selling him en masse. Like, he's an absolutely fine pick. The thing where there is a little bit of doubt is there's 2 areas. Area number 1 is basically that Southampton at home game, right? That's a midweek game because they play game week 26. So I'm going all the way up to game week 27. But what I'm saying is that is a midweek game where if he misses Southampton again, like he's missed Ipswich and he's missed Southampton, and if he misses Southampton again, there's a pattern there, number 1. Number 2, the thing with Chelsea is there's a lot of games now where there's 2 midweeks in the middle. So if you look at basically between game week 24 and 25, they will have the FA Cup 4th round and they will have Europe. So when there are 2 in the middle, is Nkunku going to start both of them so that Jackson plays both the Premier League? I'm just like, it's that was basically playing in my head on, am I going to miss out on a Premier League game because his turn was in the cup and then the next game had to be. So in summary, what I would say is Jackson is an absolutely fine pick. I don't think he's a sell at all. Whether it's a buy, you need to do your equation on what does a 8.2 million or whatever he's worth get you in terms of a midfield. And if you were to go for somebody cheaper, does that help you upgrade? And if the answer is it helps you upgrade, that's where I particularly went.
Yeah, because we are talking about a team that's hitting 13.2 XG non-pen versus Chris Wood 7.14. Could argue Forest are more functional, Wood is more of a talisman, etc. But there is merit in the Jackson pick still. I think it's.
Absolutely.
I think he's a buy even. If you had to give me carte blanche, like if you equal money plus, who would you pick?
Of course, you pick Jackson. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So it's only about the money. There's no doubt. The only thing is if he's not getting 90 minutes, if he's not on penalties, you do get frustrated with him. That's what has happened in the last 2-3 weeks with people. So I think he's an absolutely good pick. Like if you look at the data here, this is what, last 8 game weeks? He's above Mateta. People are picking Mateta. He's above Havertz. He's above Cunha, the darling. So there's no reason for people to lose faith in Jackson. I think he's an absolutely fine, and he'll play pretty much 7 out of the 8 Premier League games, if not 8 on 8.
Yeah, what might be a curveball is a January transfer window in case we bring in a forward. But from what I hear, it's more likely Nkunku leaves. We've been linked with Kolo Muani, but a lot of clubs have been as well. I'm not sure we will sign him. If we do sign a striker, of course, we don't know. The January window can bring us a lot of surprises. We've heard news about Trent, which is a separate topic altogether. So there's no point indulging in that speculation. Another forward I want to touch upon now is Ollie Watkins. He was on my radar last week, but again, I went for Jackson over him primarily because, like you mentioned, it's eventually a transfer waiting to happen in that schedule we saw. But now this news has come in that Duran has been charged further for his reaction for the red card. So we might get 1 or 2 games further of suspension. But those games are now Everton away and Arsenal away. We expect, I don't think it'll be more than a 2-game extra for
Right,
Durant.
right.
Do you think
I mean, if
Watkins?
Cunha is 2 games, like he set the bar now, right?
Exactly, right? So do you think Watkins worth a punt at all?
I mean, Watkins is good, man. How can you say anything against Watkins? It's just that he's like, at what point will will those minutes again come down? Like he will, you will go into a period of game week 23, 24, 25, 26, where transfers are going to be very precious because some people might be playing the assistant manager chip. You'll have the doubles that you want to use your transfers on. You'll have the blank that you'll have to start think about. If at that point you have to then deal with Watkins, who's got a sub on the 65th minute. It was again a long-term reason, but short-term I don't think there's any better pick. Like this week, you could captain him home to Leicester, away to Everton, away to Arsenal. Don't love it. So that's a little bit of an issue. But then again, home to West Ham, good fixture. Away to Wolves, home to Ipswich. There's 4 good fixtures here in the next 6. So if you wanted to go there, if your budget allowed, I don't think it's terrible. He's on pens now, which is something new.
Yep. Yep. I like
So-
it again, but I think the entry point was potentially better last week because you got one more game of guaranteed minutes. So,
Correct. It was definitely better last week, but then we didn't know or have this information of Duran's ban being longer and things like. And the other thing is, right, like people say, okay, content creators get reactionary. Watkins scores a goal and now Watkins is on the radar. But ultimately, form increases minutes. If Watkins scores a hat trick, home to Leicester, he's not getting dropped for Duran when Duran comes back because every time the guy celebrates, what does he do? He's like this, me, I'm number one. He's basically saying it, that I am the guy, I should be starting. There is a little bit of something going on. You can go there. It's not my kind of pick, not yet, while Duran is hanging around, but there is upside.
Yep. They're strengthening also. They're looking at Malin from Dortmund. I was reading that just before coming onto the pod. So I think Villa's attack will get a little better. Going to the
I mean, they need a right-sided guy anyway. Like Bailey has been so disappointing. This whole Diaby, they need somebody.
Yeah, with Rogers, I'm actually thinking that's the thing with Watkins, his appeal goes down a little bit because Rogers has been so pivotal for them in that engine room. They're definitely going to miss him. But again, it's Leicester, so they will probably get over the line. But the ceiling, I think, comes down slightly.
I mean, you're not captaining him, especially with what Salah's doing, right? The bar is so high for you to captain anyone else other than Salah. It's just a Rogers injury adds to the thing that maybe you don't need to captain Watkins if you have him.
Yeah. For the sake of being comprehensive, let's just go through some of the other names. I see Solanke is still quite popular. I think a lot of the cartel crowd also still holding on to him. What do you think? I have mixed opinions. I think Spurs are so erratic. I'd generally prefer Chris Wood, I think, to Solanke.
See, he's a little bit of an enigma, man. Like Spurs are a little bit of an enigma. Like their numbers are so good. They keep losing games because their defense isn't great. But then their attack keeps sharing goals. Like there's 5 good picks there, or actually 5 bad picks there, because none of them are good enough picks. Solanke looks okay, but he's not involved. His goal share is too low for this team. But then when you look at the data, that non-pen XGI of 0.6 is actually very, very good. So I don't know what to make of Solanke. Like it just feels like, okay, now boring pick, avoid him. Nobody has him anyway, so we don't need to think about him. But for 7.5 million, like if you're saying Cunha to Solanke was an option, I was looking at it, but it just felt so boring. And the fixtures aren't great.
Yeah, I was just saying the fixtures are a bit mixed. You have Newcastle, who are now in the top 3 for XGC, Arsenal away, Everton away, Leicester is good, Brentford is good, Manchester United is good, but you just don't know where the goals are coming from.
Exactly. I mean, even in the chat, Tanky is saying as a Spurs fan, he will tick but won't blow your mind. I mean, that's been his season. Like we've had now 19 games, right? He's missed 3 or 4? So he's had 15 good game weeks to show us what he's about. Nothing that makes you think that he has to be like I would go Jackson if I wanted to spend a little bit more in that category. If I wanted to be a little bit different, I would just go our friend Mateta. I think he's still got good fixtures. Even Chelsea home is fine. So I think those are slightly better picks at the category. But again, like we talked about with Jackson, if you have him, absolutely fine. No need to panic on Solanke. I think the question to talk about is João Pedro. Some people are losing faith with João Pedro. What do you make of him?
So it's interesting because that's another move I wanted to talk to you about. I'm considering is João Pedro to Chris Wood. And I sort of need to understand now, who do I want to make my 8th attacker? Do I want to make it Semenyo or do I want to make it João Pedro? So I've got, let's say, for example, 1.9 million in the bank. I can go a Semenyo to a Gordon, or I can go a Pedro to a Wood or a Jesus, which would sort of lock me out of Semenyo. And earlier I was thinking, I really want Gordon. His numbers are really good. We talk about him in the midfielders section. So my plan earlier was to sell Boomo for Gordon, but I'm thinking now Boomo's a fine hold, man. The way
Boomo is fine, man.
there's
Boomo is
nothing wrong
Boomo,
with him.
man. There's so much disrespect on Boomo. Boomo's good.
Yep. So I'm wondering now if I go for that option, I will be locking me out. And again, now the fixtures for Bournemouth turn a little bit. Now Brighton are again, the fixtures a bit mixed. Let's have a look for the longer period. Now Brighton are mid in the ticker. You have Arsenal, Ipswich, Manchester United, Everton, which is all right. Then it gets a bit trickier with Forest, Chelsea. Then it gets a bit better. Then it gets trickier again. I guess Man City you can't really call tricky anymore. On the face of it, the fixtures are all right, but Pedro is again a bit enigmatic, right? Now, the 2 assists he got last game, the first one obviously a bit fluky. The underlying numbers are there, and he's actually been playing centre forward now consistently. A lot of times we were worried about he would play either CM, play one of the wing positions, but the minutes are consistent, 90 minutes every game. No penalties yet. Probably will get one in the near future, sometime over the next 10 game weeks. Seems like a reasonable hold, and I saw a lot of people had benched him this week. It's always going to be a tricky one in that sense, a player that underwhelms. And Luke made this comment on Twitter that we often make the mistake of looking at consistent players over a short sample size. Like these 3 game weeks, this guy had only 1 shot. So he's a bad pick. But then you see the game week 4 and 5, suddenly he'll get double digits. That's what happened similarly with Boomo, right?
Exactly.
That's the thing with Pedro as well. But Brighton attack in general has underwhelmed.
It has. I mean, the whole form. See, you started with, it's good for João Pedro, he's playing 9, but it's actually bad also for FPL returns if he's playing 9, right? I mean, he likes the free role. A bit like Cunha, right? If you played Cunha up top, he wouldn't be as good as if he was playing the attacking midfielder, the free role kind of thing. So on one hand, yes, minutes are good, he's playing up top, but actually it would be better if Welbeck comes back, because Ferguson is, I think, frozen out. He's also injured. Both Welbeck
I think they were
and
looking
Ferguson
for a
are
loan
still-
move. I remember reading early in the season for him out.
So they need Welbeck back soon. But even then, like, I think if he's playing up top, like, we have to compare João Pedro not with Chris Wood, not with anyone else. You have to compare João Pedro with your other midfielders, like exactly what you're doing with your Semenyo, with your Rogers, with your Enzo, with your Ahmad. Out of all of them, he's the only one on penalties. So to basically say that I have root 2 points in a decent team who's playing number 9, he's as good as any one of them. So why are people losing patience with him? I don't get it. Like, he's not a Boomo, because you need you need free kicks and you need corners as well to basically give you those consistent flow of returns. But if Brighton come back to some decent form, he's their striker. I get very confused why people are looking to sell him.
I think it's appeal of Chris. Chris just looks so talismanic. And again, keep in mind that Chris had gone a little bit off our radar. We didn't even discuss him on the pod last week because he had started sharing around the goals a little bit. I've seen Elanga's data has suddenly jumped.
Yeah.
But again, Forest are so legit. I generally feel that if they score a goal, Wood's going to be involved. I don't have that sort of confidence about João Pedro. So I do kind of like that move. But again, like you said, the entry point I think could be delayed for a couple of weeks, right? Because again, we're talking about the week after Chris Wood has Liverpool, where João Pedro has Ipswich.
Exactly. So if whatever week you make it, so if you look at the rotation, actually not rotation, but if you look at the switch, they will never be an ideal time. Like, okay, you do it this week, you can get João Pedro home to Arsenal, which is not ideal. You get Chris Wood's Wolves, which is okay, it's decent. Next week, like you mentioned, it is the reverse. But the week after, again, Chris Wood was home to Southampton. So you'll be tempted to do that move while João Pedro is playing away to Man United. So, but then the week after, João Pedro is home to Everton when Chris Wood is away to Bournemouth. This is why I like to just have both and play one of them. But that is because I've had the luxury of having a 5
And you're okay with bench pain.
Exactly.
You
I'm
will
okay
have
with
bench pain with those 2 guys.
Exactly. So I think there's a little bit of a new toy syndrome. Like, Chris Wood blanks for 2-3 weeks. Again, people will start saying, oh, João Pedro has now scored in the last 3 weeks. Let's do the reverse move. I don't think these are very high upside moves, personally.
Yep, just
Like, getting a Gordon is a much bigger upside move.
Yeah. And I think Forest odds over here give you an indication of how bookies rate their attacking prowess. Now, away to Wolves right now, who are without Totti Gomez or without Cunha, Forest are projected to score just 1.45 goals. Now, we compare that, like you said, to a Gordon, right? Something similar. Look at Newcastle, who are away to Tottenham. I know, not the best defense, but on paper, they would still be rated higher than Wolves, I would say.
Yep.
And you see Newcastle
definitely.
are 2.05 while Forest are 1.45. So definitely a larger goal pie there.
Correct. But lower goal share. Like, obviously, Chris Wood does take a higher goal
That's what
share
it comes down
than a
to.
Gordon or somebody, because Isak is scoring 50% of their goals at the moment. Like, it's crazy.
So it's not a move that I would put anyone off, but again, it's not a move that you need to do, I think.
This is where I am. Like, I'm not saying João Pedro is a must hold. He's the best. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is can't really be your biggest problem. But if your team is fine otherwise, and if you think you want to get like I saw last week, people were selling João Pedro for Mateta. I think it was okay. Nothing wrong with it. There was upside with Mateta, home to Southampton. Similarly, this week, if people want to make the move, it's okay. But I just think, as a set and forget striker, if you were to go to a 5 in midfield type of thing or a rotation, then I think João Pedro is fine.
Yeah, pretty much just park him as your first sub with a strong midfield. You know that he's reliable whenever he comes on, has many routes to points. So I do like him more, I would say, than let's say a Rodgers or a Semenyo as your 8th attacker.
I think so. I think so. For just that, if he continues to play 90 minutes, especially, which is incredible for Brighton attack. Like, people are buying Mitoma, man, for like 6.5. This guy's 5.5.
Fair enough.
So, I gave my views on Jesus versus Chris Wood. What do you think? Where are you?
I think if you're chasing right now, ultimately we talk about stats. Arsenal are also picking up in terms of attack, and the fact that they've got now Ethan playing on the right, Martinelli playing on the left, the attack looked a lot more functional. But again, the schedule, we go back to Lego Mane's taken off for Arsenal. I want to give it a little bit more time to observe whether Jesus, how the team is functioning, because you have the Newcastle, Manchester United in the FA Cup, then you have Tottenham, Villa, then you have Dynamo Zagreb, then you have another European fixture in Girona, then you have again the Man City, Newcastle. There's a lot of fixtures. They essentially don't have a free midweek now for ages.
Yeah.
So the thing is, what happens if Jesus has a stinker in a couple of games? As Havertz going to consistently be playing in that withdrawn 8 position, maybe he gets shifted out to the right, etc. It just doesn't feel like a solid set and forget pick for me. But again, it is a pick with high upside, because when Jesus is hot, he's hot.
Yeah, he's hot. You're basically picking a similar pick to a Havertz. Like, when we were saying Havertz is probably the third best pick. If you were to go for double Arsenal attack, you could go for Jesus. Yeah, it's that long-term issue. It's exactly what you said. When Champions League starts, maybe the rotation happens and he plays the Champions League games. He's just not a Saka, or he's not the same pick. Even Havertz has consistency of 90 minutes no matter what. Of course, he was ill midweek, so he didn't play. But otherwise, Havertz is the 90 minutes man. Odegaard probably plays most games. We'll talk about Odegaard in the midfield section. But I would say even being boring and going Havertz might be better than, like, Jesus feels short term to me. And I could be very wrong and we could reevaluate. But short term, I don't mind it. But long term, I mind it.
Yeah. I'd like to give it one more week. Just see how the Brighton
which
and
is
the
3
next
more
games.
games.
Which is 3 more games. Just get 3 more games of data on Arsenal and how they set up, how they play. Because ultimately, the fixtures are good. They're obviously a top 3, top 4 team. So when you say that and you say that Chris Wood is the same price, even though the league positions are not too far apart, attacking numbers, there's heaven and earth difference.
Exactly. And their midweek cup games are actually not easy games. So it's not like they will mass rotate, right? It's home to Man United, home to Newcastle. Okay, again, we can laugh about Man United, but they'll play a decent team. So we will see 3 more games. I'm in full agreement with you.
Moving on to Mateta, who we touched upon. Again, not goal hanging as much as I would like. I think he's coming deeper, setting up, playing for the team a lot more than he was last season. Not a great pick, but again, I think for example, Chris Wood feels better to me than a Mateta today. Not a bad pick as such, but not one you'd rush out and buy.
Twat in a hat-trick in one of these 3-4 games. He is capable, which he has shown to us in the past. Like, their games, the Crystal Palace games, where are they? There's away to Leicester, away to West Ham, home to Brentford, away to Man United, home to Everton. Fantastic, man. Five set of very, very good games after Chelsea, basically.
For the next 10 game weeks, you take a full long view.
So you can't go too wrong with it. But yes, you can basically get frustrated with it. That I tried to go different. Instead of a Wood, I went for a Mateta and it didn't work out. But I would not talk anyone out of it. Like, there is a ceiling there. In fact, I would say he's a better shout as a punt than a Jesus. I know it sounds odd to say a Crystal Palace striker is better than an Arsenal striker, because Mateta could turn out to be fantastic. It could turn out to be a bandwagon in 3 weeks. As opposed to, Chris Wood, what you'll get. Like, he'll score 1 in 2, 1 in 3, or 2 in 4.
He will have blanks. Like we saw with
blanks.
A couple of blanks.
But he'll be highly owned, so it's low damage. and you still went there. With Mateta, the problem is basically what happens is you go there, two blanks, and then you go, what the hell have I done? Everybody else has gone for someone else. So high risk, high upside.
Yeah, like you said, Jesus and Mateta are the chaser picks.
Agreed.
I think that's about it. I think we've covered all the forwards. Let's just do a roundup, top two, and let's say sub 7 million, then let's do top two above 7 million.
You go first.
Okay, I'll go Chris Wood. I think that's an easy one, obviously below 7. Let's look at the other. What other options are there in the lower bracket? I think Jimenez we
Make
discussed.
it under 8, no? Basically under Jackson.
Under Jackson? Okay, under Jackson, then probably Mateta. Then
Mateta
Jesus
and Wood?
in third. Yeah.
I think I agree.
Probably that. Now with Jimenez, that's another thing I want to touch upon. I've owned Jimenez in parts. It's not even just a midweek rotation, right? Let's say he comes off at 70th. Muniz comes on scores. Literally the next game, even if there's a week apart, you're worried. Muniz is going to start the next one. So Jimenez is absolute no-go for me. The fixtures are fantastic, but would not go there.
Agreed. And there's more midweek stuff coming. Like you want these picks now to be very, very long term. So again, he's an okay hold, but I don't think you need to be buying him as such.
Well, I think we didn't touch upon Gakpo at all. A few guys on our Discord, namely FPL Rejects, has been on about him for the last few weeks. Do you think he's sort of working his way into Liverpool's first choice front three?
I think on paper, you would say the first choice is Gakpo left, Diaz top, and Salah on the right. But when Jota was fit, he was first choice. So at the moment, there is no answer. I don't think any Liverpool fan can also give an answer on who is the first choice, because Diaz has been really good, but Gakpo has been really good. This is the reason why I didn't like the Diaz pick at all, because people were confident Jota starts as soon as he's fit. He's not starting. But is that because he's lost his place, or is he being very, very careful? Like, look at other examples of players who have come back and he's been very, very careful with them. Like, he was careful with Trent. He was careful with Elliott. He's careful with Robertson or Tsimikas when he's come back. Similarly with Jota. So at some point when Jota starts a Premier League game, I would say it's 50% between whether it's Diaz or Gakpo. So, like, do you think one of them is higher in the pecking order?
It's interesting because the dynamic, I never thought Diaz would be quite effective in the centre forward role. I've always expected him to compete with Gakpo on the left, and that's what we saw in pre-season, that it would be Jota, Darwin for the centre forward position. But now I think we have one less variable to contend with. Darwin looks very much out of favour. Unless it's like a very easy opposition where they need to mass rotate, that's the only time when he does come in. And it's working well for Diaz. I think the dynamics is really favoring. He's dropping a bit deeper, letting Salah get in more central, letting Gakpo get more central. So very hard to call, and I think it's a decision. If we are going to punt on a third Liverpool spot, you want to leave as late to the double, which we think will be in 25, not somewhere you want to invest in now.
Exactly. So, this is true for all Liverpool picks. Like, get Salah, get Trent. I mean, Trent is a different discussion on this whole Real Madrid rumors. We'll come to him when we talk defenders. But get those two and then sit tight. That would be my recommendation, because you could basically say, I'll pick my third Liverpool closer to the time. It could be that somebody is injured, Diaz is injured, then Gakpo becomes a pick, or you could go Van Dijk, you could go Slot. Like, I'm still, I would say, closer over 50% on using the assistant manager chip in that Liverpool double. And so I think leaving that slot open makes sense, because you could go for Slot, you could go for Sean Dyche. I just don't want to close my options at this stage.
That's when you've already used your triple captain, so it's more of a consideration for you.
I will make a case later that even if you've haven't used it, it might be better to play it in this week than in game week 33. Because 33, Salah has Leicester, man. You triple captain against Leicester. But that's for another part.
Fair enough. Now, going back to the forwards above the price bracket, I think Jackson also, while he's a good pick to buy, you'd feel slightly a bit iffy right now with a little bit of a slump that Chelsea are in. Would that be fair?
It's fair, and this is where pricing also comes into it. Like, people get a little afraid. Like, when you're buying a player who's dropping in price, you know that if he blanks the next game, he's going to drop again. And so it becomes a little bit of a subconscious thing where do I want to catch this guy who's now on a downfall? If pricing was not into it and price was not an issue, I think we've already said it. He's probably the second best pick, the second best forward.
Right. And that's why we not even mentioned Isak. He's as much of a no-brainer. His NPXGI almost of 1.
Off the charts, man. Off the chart. This is what we thought Haaland will be.
And what we thought Isak would be in game week 1 as well.
Yes. We captained him. So it's not like we have all knee-jerked and brought him into our team. We believed in him.
Cool. I think that's enough for the forwards. Let's talk about midfielders. Some of the picks over here, your boy Anthony Gordon. Now, this is midfielders under 8 million, right?
Yes. Under 8
Go-
billion for the last 8 game weeks.
right. So we see Gordon on top. He's tied with Ismail Assar for 0.58. Gordon's numbers are really good in terms of both chance creation and goal threat. I think he's not double return in either of the last 2 games. I think he's got 1 goal, 1 assist, but I do think in one of these games that double return is coming, especially now that he's taking a lot more set pieces.
Yeah, it's the set pieces, man. Like as soon as Trippier held his hamstring, at that point, basically, I went on the FPL site. I checked, can I afford Gordon for Rodgers? And if I went downward to a striker, and lo and behold, it was exact money. If I went Wood, Cunha to Wood, and basically Rodgers to Gordon, I was like, forget about it. I'm taking a hit. It's if you're getting all the set pieces in a form team, he's again playing on his favorite left side. Like we have been consistently saying this. When he was experimented on the right hand side and Barnes was playing off the left, it was rubbish because he was crossing. He's got a good cross on him, but I want him to cut back and shoot. I want him to take the set pieces. He's getting both of those at the moment. So we are at a time now, mid-price midfielders are back. Bumo is back. Gordon is back. This is why people are using that money, that Saka money to go there.
Agree. The other picks now are a bit underwhelming. I think Diaz again, not one you'd want to commit to right now. Although I think Diaz has his merit. I know Baker is gone for him. He got a goal this weekend, but again, it's a lot of investment to put forth in the long run. Enzo is one another. A lot of people are also getting itchy fingers on. The numbers are still good. I think he was a top chance creator against Ipswich.
He was fantastic, man, against Ipswich. Like I watched the highlights, I was like, dude, I shouldn't have sold him. But then everybody's moving to a one cheap strike midfielder structure. So poor guy is taking the fall. I think he's been great.
At 5.1, I don't really know what more you're expecting. 0.52 NPXGI at 5.1.
Yeah.
Is brilliant. Martinelli is one I'm actually thinking is a bit more safe, I think, in terms of minutes than Jesus. In midfield, he's got decent NPXGI 0.5, and I think on the left, he's much, much better. Against Ipswich, I really didn't like it. I thought he struggled a little bit. He kept getting to the byline. And Arsenal generally like to play these inverted wingers, right? They always play the guy, left-footed guy on the right, Martinelli on the left. So Martinelli, the way I looked at it, on the right, he had more assist threat than goal threat because he's always looking to cross. But on the left, I think he could be a good pick. If you were to pick just one today now, position, money, etc., Noba, would it be Martinelli or Jesus?
I don't. With Jesus, there's a chance that he's involved in a lot of goals. With Martinelli, now that Nwaneri played on the right, I feel like it's the same Martinelli that was basically sharing minutes with Trossard in the past. So yes, he was good in the past, but in the last game, now this may change, right? Arsenal are also trying to figure out how is life without Saka. In the last game, I was watching it very carefully. They're still trying to make those same triangles on the right-hand side where Odegaard is at the edge of the box. Timber and Nwaneri were trying to basically make this triangle and then get the ball into the box. That's basically how Martinelli got his goal. He received the ball on the other side of the box. So he's still not going to be the guy who's involved in most of the play. He will pop up with goals. He's always got a good XG on him. He did take corners, or he should be on corners if Rice is not playing, but Rice will play a lot of games. So I think he's a okay pick. But for 6.8 million, I would pick Gordon. Why would you pick Martinelli? I just think you've got good fixtures, you've got set pieces, you've got attacking threat, and more minutes. Martinelli at some point will stop playing 90. Trossard will come on. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not feeling the same thing. If I wanted to go for an Arsenal attacker, I would go for Jesus.
I think I agree. Jesus just feels a little bit more involved. And again, you want to catch the hot streak. That's more
exactly.
That's more the appeal with Jesus. But comparing Martinelli to somebody like a Sarr or an Eze, it's a little bit more tricky, you think?
Yeah, I think that's trickier. He's comparable, I would say, to those guys. But then Sarr is much cheaper. Eze, okay, almost the same price. Eze's fixtures are fantastic, though. With Eze, it's the thing, if he comes into form, he gets into the Eze we know. If you look at numbers here, they're pathetic. But he's been injured, he's not been getting the minutes. Maybe that changes. So there is that upside. With Martinelli, if he's playing off the left and sharing minutes with Trossard, we already know what that Martinelli is. We've seen it. And we were still not picking him before. So what has changed now?
That's a fair point. Although I think maybe there's a bit more of an onus on him tactically or maybe even mentally to provide more goals in Saka's absence.
Maybe. And there's a free slot now, so that has changed. We didn't have a third Arsenal slot before. So, look, I'm not shooting it down. I'm just saying, if you wanted to go for a third Arsenal, they possibly Jesus could be better. I mean, Odegaard is not in this list. What did you make of Odegaard?
I've never warmed up to Odegaard as a fantasy pick. He's a fantastic, fantastic player, but I've always felt that in terms of FPL potential, he's a bit underwhelming.
I had expected him to be like, I was, again, as a non-owner, watching him very carefully yesterday. When I saw that it was Moreno and Partey starting in midfield, I was like, this guy's going to be like, attacking midfielder. He's going to run the show. But it was the same role. It was the same role of basically being the guy who makes that pass for somebody else to cross the ball. So we'll always be the hockey assister. So I feel like, yeah, I feel like there is potential, but if you lose corners as well to Nwaneri, which he didn't take any corners, there is lower potential. He's still an okay pick. I think it's a bit like, and I feel like Bruno is the same now. If you have them, you can keep them. I don't think anyone is buying them until they show something different. With Bruno, you have the added advantage. Maybe you have a little bit more set pieces, but a much worse team. So I think both are below average picks at the moment. And so if you have them, keep them. But I don't think it's a buy at all anyway.
Where are you on Sarr versus Eze? I know the points swung one way, but I was quite impressed from what I saw from Sarr, both goal and assist potential. I would still buy him over Eze.
Eze didn't even take corners. Hughes took. So I'm not seeing why. I mean, I know why people went for Eze over Sarr, but I'm not watching it and saying that I want one or the other. Like, I think Sarr was great, and I don't think the fixtures favor Eze over a Sarr particularly anyway. I think it was just one of those things. Sarr is cheaper. I still prefer him.
Agree. Looking at the other names on this list, Semenyo is a very frustrating player to own. I wouldn't recommend anyone buy him. And now the fixtures are also turning for Bournemouth a little bit. The numbers for Semenyo are staggering, Pras. He's the second highest amongst midfielders for XG in home matches.
He takes a lot of shots, man.
But barely hits the target. That's the thing with him. Most of those shots are just blocked.
But they're quite powerful shots. When he takes a shot and you're a non-owner, you're like, oh, like that was, he has some. In another world, some of those shots go in and people talk about Semenyo as like the best sub 6 million pick because he has potential. Like that team is so attacking. He is the shot taker in a very, very good attacking team. In another world, he would be a very, very good pick. And so, I don't know. If you're getting frustrated with him, fine. And because of fixtures, I can also understand why he can be a sell. Also, there's a lot of other good options in that price bracket now.
Right. And the other names now, I think Sancho and Mitoma, let's not talk about them. Talk to me about Bumo. This is another question I had for my Q&A. People are looking at buying him. Again, now yesterday he played in a strange sort of role. Even though they didn't play a back five, he played as a centre forward with sort of Norgard dropping deep when they were in possession as sort of the third centre back. Now that role might not continue for very long. Now look at Brentford's fixtures. That's the sort of role he plays in the tougher games. So let's say Man City, Liverpool, you might see that, maybe Tottenham. The other fixtures now, the good fixtures, a lot of them are away. You have Southampton, that's away, Palace, West Ham, Leicester. Now, he's not been that good in away matches, and Brentford in general have struggled on the road. So while I can understand you hold, I don't see the appeal in buying.
Bumo?
Yep.
I think you buy him after Liverpool if you really wanted to buy. Or maybe even after Palace. Like home to Spurs, West Ham, Leicester, Everton, Villa, that's a good window to buy, I think.
Run, yep.
So if you take out Liverpool from it, I mean, I would ordinarily also include Man City, but I will not. But I would say, yeah, I think after that, he can be a buy again. Like you could think of scenarios where you go back to Bumo, even Wissa, if people are thinking about that. But I think for the next, it's Southampton, man. So how can you talk anybody against buying him away to Southampton? But home to Man City, Liverpool, look, you're chancing it. But then the other argument will be he scored against Arsenal, he scored against Chelsea. So
the tougher games is where, like you said, he plays in the centre forward role. Yeah. So I don't mind him for those tougher games. And another very strange thing Brentford are doing is their set pieces. Randomly, you see one game, Damsgaard is taking them. Then you see Bumo taking them on one side. There's no consistency on that.
Yeah. It's probably based on opposition and whether it's in-swinger, out-swinger kind of thing. I think with Bumo, with Solanke, it's the same advice. Like they're fine picks. They're easy holds. You don't have to sell them. If you want to buy them, sure. No, I'm not going to talk anybody out of buying them. So these are like good, consistent picks that do all right and can do well in any fixture kind of thing.
So I was thinking of something like Bumo to Bruno the week after. I've gotten pause for thought just because of how dysfunctional Manchester United are looking. But the fixtures of Manchester United then are Southampton, Brentford, Fulham, Palace. What do you think about that move?
I mean, I got Bruno for basically beyond 21. I will come to my bust team. I might even bench Bruno this week. Like, I think it's between João Pedro home to Arsenal or Bruno away to Liverpool. It's close. So, but after this week, I'm happy to have a United attacker. It could be Ahmad, by the way. So I'm not saying, like, obviously there's a price difference and you get what you pay for. With Bruno, you get the set pieces and pens and a little bit more talismanic share. But I think Man United, you have to have a massive leap of faith to pick any Man United player right now. Like, it's a new manager, but it's just not working. Like, the new system is not working. We keep playing wing backs who are defenders who don't know how to join into the attacks when we actually have the ball. So we keep giving it back, and then we have absorb pressure, and then we let in a goal. It's not working, but I completely believe, not just as a fan, I think most neutrals would agree, Amorim should figure it out. He has a system that works. I think it takes two good signings, one wing back, a central midfielder, and it looks better. I'm not saying it will become a top 4 team, but it looks better. And when the fixtures are such, home to Southampton, home to Brighton, home to Crystal Palace, home to Ipswich, you have Leicester, Spurs, Fulham in there. Fulham is okay, not easy. I think it looks like a team that you can back, especially because they also play blank game week 29 and they have Leicester in that.
But let's say if you need to downgrade him to afford, let's say, a João Pedro to Chris Wood. Let's say if you do Bruno to Gordon, that lets you go Pedro to Chris Wood. Would you be against that? I would do it.
No, I can't stop anyone from selling Man United players, man. Like, we are all watching what we are. I just think with my team value, I'm able to even afford like a Gordon without that, and so I'm okay with it. But if you can't and the team value isn't there, if you want to sell Bruno, yeah, man, sell him.
Yep. I think if you need to raise funds, is an okay option to sell.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think we're talking on midfield. Let's do our top rankings for your Bowen replacement. I know not many people have Bowen, but let's just do midfielders in this bracket. I think pretty much the order we see them on the stats. Gordon right on top, then Sarr.
Yeah, I mean those are the picks. I think with the fixtures, Sarr is probably the best cheap midfielder at the moment. But not everybody has him, and again, you have to think about, do you want to do sideways moves for 5 million? So maybe the Sarr move can wait a week anyway. This is why the Rodgers thing is so frustrating. Like, I saw a lot of teams that were planning to have Rodgers play him this week against Leicester and then jump on Sarr. Would have made so much sense. So if you want to go a week earlier, I can understand it. Equally, if you want to hold Rodgers for those good fixtures, that's also fine. I don't think these are like essential moves.
I fancy Sarr to do well against Chelsea. He's the kind of player we struggle to defend against, a player who's very good on the transitions.
And there might be some space behind Cucurella, like maybe making narratives, but he likes space being behind, right? So I don't mind playing him.
Yep. Just have a quick look at some of the odds for this game week. Now for clean sheets, Liverpool and Villa are right on top. Villa is understandable. They're playing Leicester. Liverpool are home to Manchester United. Arsenal are 32% away to Brighton. I think they're only like 6th or 7th. But I think with Rice back, they will be a lot more solid. But Brighton away, do you fancy a clean sheet there?
I mean, the odds are, I think, correct, right? There's like the 6th most likely, 7th most likely.
Yep.
It's fine. Like, you remember early season, Arsenal actually managed a couple of clean sheets. I think it was home to Brighton. And although there was a red card involved.
Brighton was a red card. There was a red card and João Pedro scored. It was a 1-1.
Yeah, it was 1-1. But there were a couple of clean sheets. Maybe it was Spurs. I'm forgetting now. Where, Raya got those bonus points. So I'm like, look, if it's a tougher game, then maybe Raya gets some save points. But yeah, who would have thought Liverpool are the highest clean sheet odds playing Man United? But that's where we are.
So there are few people who also have the Timber issue, who have a double up or triple up on the Arsenal defense. Would you advise holding Timber through it? I think Arsenal's fixtures do toughen up a little bit now in terms of clean sheets. Now, while I was looking at this ticker for the long run, if we sorted it for defensive difficulty, Arsenal were in the bottom half, but he sorted by attack difficulty, they were in third. And it's understandable. The fixtures are after Brighton are Tottenham, Villa, and you have Man City. Now, these fixtures all at home. You back them for the attackers. Similarly for Leicester, West Ham. These are very good fixtures for the attackers, but again, games in which they could concede.
Yeah, I agree. Look, if it's a Timber, and you don't have urgent major issues in the rest of your team, move him to a Robinson, Hall, Munoz. I mean, those guys are incredible, man, at the moment.
The GPs are delivering immense value. Hall's numbers have been incredible.
So, like, I don't hate it. Like, I think the time to have Arsenal double defense, triple defense was game week 12 to game week 20. We're out of that, or game week 18. So, if you want to come down, I don't hate it. Because it's not just the tougher fixtures. it's quite likely that they will also blank in game week 29. So you can basically say I'm now reducing my exposure to Arsenal a little bit as I'm building towards a team, and then get back on them on wildcard or something like that.
Another team I think we should touch upon, obviously, it's incredible that we go through entire pods nowadays, even without talking about Manchester City. 2.75 goal odds. They're going to be without Bowen, who's consistently their attacking outlet, right? Of course, there's Kudus, but Bowen is pretty much that team's talisman.
Yeah.
I think, but again, we can't really recommend a move to Haaland out, right? We got a question in the chat. Somebody was talking about maybe downgrading Palmer to move to
get Haaland.
Yeah.
I mean, people got massively burnt this week again, because it's not that you're backing a struggling Haaland. So it's a different question of if you have, right? LR has, he kept it for these weeks, and it makes sense. But for you to make the move to buy, you're spending 2 or 3 transfers to buy him. You're backing an out-of-form team and an out-of-form striker to outperform a midfielder who's breaking the game in terms of, he's going to hit 400 points if he continues like this, Salah. And a team that is top of the league. So you need so many things to align, and if it doesn't, then you have wasted 4 transfers and some points in captaining Haaland. That's basically the issue here. How much will you gain? So you're basically hoping that Salah blanks home to Man United. You can put your own odds on what that is. Like Man United, you've watched them. Salah's getting 1 attacking
We've
return.
gotten questions asking whether they should triple captain Salah.
I mean, I'm not answering that. But you're backing against a Salah in that fixture. And Man City home to West Ham, yeah, they could win 3-0. But how much are you gaining? Like if Liverpool were playing Arsenal, I can understand, okay, I'm going to use 2 transfers to get Haaland. I'm going to get 2 transfers to take him out, because you will have to take Haaland out.
And again, the run also for Man City does get difficult quite soon. You have West Ham, Brentford, Ipswich are all right. But then you have Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool.
Yeah.
Tottenham's obviously not that bad. And Forest. I'd say Forest is a difficult fixture now for any team. The fixture, and again, you get him for the next 3 game weeks, and then you go like the fixtures turn a little bit sour again.
Exactly. And when Liverpool, so let's say you sacrifice Salah to get him, have Ipswich and Wolves in 23 and 25.
Nobody's possibly selling Salah. I can understand for Palmer.
Jazzy did it, so I had to talk about it.
Yes, Jazzy is just a madman, man.
But even Chelsea, home to Wolves, home to West Ham, home to Southampton, home to Leicester. These are the 4 home games coming up in the next 8 weeks for Chelsea.
Yep. And again, this because Palmer's blanked in the last 3 games, Chelsea have scored 1 goal. So it's a bit more like impatience there. But I think Palmer's a good pick. Maybe, obviously, he doesn't have the same ceiling as Salah, right? We saw even in that Ipswich game, he just had 1 shot in the box. But
Palmer scored last game. Not the Ipswich one. That beautiful goal from Colwill assist.
Right.
But Chelsea in general, yes, you're right. They've scored 1 in the last 3.
Yep. And there's been some suggestion that this could be mirror what happened with Maresca at Leicester, where he started out real strong and sort of faded away. But we are only at the halfway point of the season. I don't think teams have figured them out yet as such. And
what I don't understand.
Go ahead.
Yeah, what I don't get with you guys is people keep saying you're tired. You've barely played football, man. There's no midweek. It's a different team for midweek.
I don't get
it. So what is the tiredness coming from?
Let's just talk about the 3 fixtures, right? Everton, we didn't create much, but Everton away, once they decide not to concede this, even Arsenal couldn't create much against them. They're obviously a decent defense. And then we're talking about Fulham. Fulham have given all the big boys trouble. They nearly beat Man City, should have beaten them. Arsenal, Liverpool, they've given them all troubles. Again, Fulham are a good team. Now, Ipswich, I think Maresca got the team selection catastrophically wrong. Now, what happened? Completely game state driven, right? Once you concede that penalty late on, you get the crowd up, you get the home team then who are willing to sit in a deep block, and takes the confidence out of our players who are not used to starting these matches in this sort of environment. Nkunku, Felix is away to Ipswich. Then once they concede the second goal, the team mentality, confidence just completely goes. It's hard to pick it up from that. So again, wouldn't read too much into the last few results. I think the team still should do well over the next few fixtures.
Agreed. No, I still think Chelsea is a good team. If you have their Colwills, if you have Jackson, if you have Palmer is definitely second best pick in the game, man. I don't think Palmer is going anywhere.
The Brentford odds here are interesting me now, only 1.6. The adjustment to Southampton, I think, has already happened with the bookies on the basis of their last 2 performances.
Yeah, I agree. Southampton and Wolves both have looked good defenses actually with new managers. So I do agree that has happened. But we saw with Man United, right? The new manager bounce can drop off very quickly as well.
Manchester United is just a very different thing, I guess, compared to these 2 teams where the expectations are a lot lower. than it is with Manchester. I think Amorim's job is a lot more difficult because I think
Oh,
he's
of course.
inherited a much more dysfunctional team.
But it's a case of basically him not having the players, but then Southampton would argue they're on a much lower budget, right? I mean, but it is a case that I think in Southampton and Wolves' case, they've now got a manager, respectively, that are much more pragmatic and want to basically get them through results, grind out results. They want to be defense first, and that's fine. That's the way to do it. Like
But
we've
it's not acceptable
seen
at
it over the
Manchester
years.
United. You have to play the Manchester United way,
Exactly.
right? If you grind
I
out
mean, his
0-0,
way.
1-0.
Exactly. So I look, Southampton Wolves, I think we need to monitor this. I think we're at a stage where at the moment there is one team that you can expect a battering pretty much most games, which is the one you quote tweeted, which is Leicester. Leicester are consistently showing us that they are there for the taking.
It's unfortunate that they couldn't get something against Man City. I thought they actually played pretty well in that game. I can't believe they had more possession.
Vardy had like 2-3 chances.
Yep.
Good chances.
Incredible.
But that's Man City.
But the beginning of the season, if you told me that, imagine. But yeah, we're not even having a discussion on captaincy. I think it's just Salah this week.
Well, I see in the chat people are asking about Isak. What do you think?
Way to Tottenham. Again, like you saw, way to Manchester United. I think once you go a couple of goals up, he's all right. But then the ceiling again with Salah. He had 7 big chance involvements plus against West Ham and he got only 3 returns. That literally was a 30-plus pointer waiting to happen.
This is the thing. It's Liverpool are at home and Newcastle are away. And you're basically going against a machine.
You can't bet against like a 7-0 again happening over here. That's the sort of thing in this game.
I mean, I'm not going to agree to that.
Obviously.
But it's also the early kickoff, as Tanky says, the Newcastle Spurs game. So, but actually, I'm going to quote Andy Martin here. There is some severe weather, some snow. So definitely vice captain Isak, because Isak plays the early kickoff on Saturday. So you're done with that. It's an afternoon game. Get done with it. Have your vice captain playing, and then go from there.
Good point about the snow. Leave the transfers till later, I guess, if you've not gone now.
Well, yeah, or have a good bench, because you won't know about the snow on Saturday either, right?
Obviously,
so,
but you get some idea by the kickoff on Saturday. But the games are out on Saturday at least. The majority of the slate is a Saturday slate. Only 2 games on Sunday.
Fair enough.
Cool. Anything here to discuss before we do a sleeper plug?
Defense. Do we want to talk about anything in defense? Like, there's a lot of. Would the Real Madrid thing put you off anyone going Timber to Trent, for example?
That's a good question. Because it's very hard to read. I don't think there would be smoke without fire. The fact that
Orny has tweeted it. So there is fire. It depends on whether they're just trying to destabilize him so that he signs in the summer.
I mean, don't you think his camp has potentially encouraged that move? I don't think they would make that move without some sort of like solicitation from the player himself.
But I don't know why would Real Madrid want to pay any money, like if they can get him for free anyway? And then why would they say, okay, we'll make a bid to get you now? Because that would only encourage Liverpool to put a contract in front of Trent. So it actually is to the detriment of Real Madrid that they've made this offer now. They could have just announced we have a pre-contract agreement with Trent and he's joining us in the summer. Liverpool can't stop them.
It's a difficult one because again the fixtures for Liverpool get good, but a part of the appeal of buying Trent is you want him in for 24-25. Now let's just look at what the immediate fixtures are. Manchester United, Forest, Brentford. Not the ideal ones for clean sheets. You'd have to say Manchester United is good, but I think Forest away, Brentford away is not that fantastic.
Brentford away is not, but Forest away is going to be one of those games where Forest will sit back. They beat them.
Yep.
They beat them at Anfield, but they didn't have, they'll have 1 or 2 chances. Man United are the highest clean sheet odds. We just seen it. So I just think I would still get him if you can get him.
It's very, very tricky, but I think, just potentially get him because like we've seen, he looks on it again. He could, besides the goal, he had, I think, 2 or 3 big chances created as well.
He's been creating so much. Salah misses so many of his created chances. That goal, even though people go, oh, it's a jammy deflection or whatever, dude, he should have had like 3 assists in the last 3-4 game weeks. So it is what it is. The points will come from him, and if you own him, definitely keep him and not worry about the Real Madrid thing. He's there till he's there.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you. He's still a good move. I think for Timber, but he would be my top replacement. Again, you're not going near the city. Who else are you going to? Unless you're going down. If you're going up,
You would
he's
go
pretty
down.
much on
Yeah, you would go down. You would go to Hall, Robinson, Castagna,
Munoz.
or Munoz. Those are the 4.
Cool. Let's do our sleeper picks. Then that bus
Yep.
teams.
So there's an important sleeper pick
Hold on.
announcement this week, which is basically our January month is starting. So if you're part of our public league, then we basically have a prize every single month. The winner gets a Premier League jersey, and there's an end of year prize as well for the top 10. But if you're also part of our Discord, and if you're part of our Discord, then you're either a member on YouTube, which is you can go on YouTube, FPL Wire, and become a member, or join Patreon, patreon.com/the FPL Wire. If you are one of those, then you can join our exclusive Patreon Pick'em League. And there, every single month, the top 3 win Premier League jerseys. So it's the time, because you will get January. And this is your shot. So if you wanted to join, get involved, and it would be great to have you.
Fantastic. Let's now do our bus teams. And before we discuss our teams, a like and subscribe plug, please, guys. If you've enjoyed the video, please do hit the like button. We have crossed our 35K subscribers target. We're at 35.3 now. Our target now to the end of the season is 40K. We would appreciate if you could help get us there. There'll be more team selection videos coming from Pras and I tomorrow. LR is on travels, so we'll discuss his team first. I'll read it out. Rhea, Munoz, Gabriel, Robinson, Salah, Palmer, Sarr, and Ahmad. Haaland captain, again, Isak and Joao Pedro. I wonder if he'll stick with Haaland captain.
I think he will.
I mean, only LR has the patience to do this, but again, it's a scary one, man. Because again, like you said, once you're going against Salah, you're not only counting on like Haaland to do well, you need Salah to sort of score significantly less than it. Your numbers are getting scary now. It's not even like it's 130, 140 Salah. Last game week, even at my rank of like 1.2 million, he's like 190% EO.
Yeah, he's 190. Everybody is on Captain Salah. Like, it's very hard. There's some Mavericks out there who will be on Isak. This week, you won't even have the Palmer split. Like last week, we made some gains on some people because the expected points were similar for Palmer. Some people chased free risk and so went for Palmer. Like, I don't think this week is everybody's going to be on Salah. So if you're going for Haaland, you are taking on the world, literally. I don't know. Like, I get it. Every single week, LR's team looks fantastic. Absolutely especially since the fixtures for City have improved. The Everton home, Leicester, West Ham. His team has looked fantastic. But something happens. Like, this week he didn't have Trent, so Trent basically popped off. The week before, I think weeks before, it was either Saka or someone else. Or it's just the captaincy swing, man. Like, it's tough. But I think LR will captain Haaland.
I think you will, but I think the fixture this week is just too good for Salah. Again, let's have a look. The week after is when you can afford to be a little bit more adventurous. I think Salah has a Forest game, and I think Haaland has Brentford or Ipswich. Let me just look real quick.
Brentford. I think next week Palmer might be the more popular captain amongst the engaged.
But again, Bournemouth against the big teams, I do fancy them to turn up. I think the next week is when it makes more sense, 21 to go against. Because Forest away is not an easy fixture, nor is Bournemouth at home.
Bournemouth home, I feel Chelsea will enjoy it.
It's generally decent for the attackers. You do fancy it, but Bournemouth against the big teams, they do turn up.
True. This is Chelsea home though, so I get it. I hear what you're saying. We'll have the captaincy discussion then, but I'm tempted as things stand to go Palmer over Salah next week.
Yep. Again, it all depends on performances. If Chelsea look better this week, they put 2 or 3 past Palace, it becomes a much clearer decision. We struggle, and then people are just going to go back to Salah anyway. Anything you see for his team? He said he's planning to roll for 1 free transfer, 0 in the bank. I can't really see
I would
much.
start dibbling over Ahmad.
Yeah, that's a fair shout, especially since the home game for Southampton. Brentford can be quite leaky on the road.
I think Ahmad will start right wing back.
That makes sense.
Actually, I have no idea. When you're losing, right, anything is possible. But I think the biggest criticism has been that we are creating nothing when we have those 2 wing backs, Dalo and Mazraoui as our wing backs. So I think something will change. Maybe we might even see Garnacho as a wing back. I don't know. But I just feel it's worth a shout, man. Dibbling was okay.
Yeah, I agree. And again, Southampton is the first home game. I think, no, second home game under the new manager. So there is potential there. My team, I brought in Henderson last week. Trent, Gabriel, Robinson, Bumo, Salah Cap, Palmer, Sarr, Semenyo, Nicholas Jackson and Isak, with Joao Pedro, Mikalenko and Greaves on the bench. I've got now 1.9 in the bank and 1 transfer. So a lot of options over here. I can go, let's say, Joao Pedro to Wood. And then I would be benching Semenyo. I can go Semenyo to Gordon, sort of make Joao Pedro my 8th attacker. Or I could just roll, get some more information. Because I have a difficult time reading that Everton at home fixture. Because now Everton, you look at the stats, they're top 4, top 5 for XGC, but are they going to set up the same way against Bournemouth that they did, let's say, against an Arsenal? Does Dyche even know any other way?
I would still back Bournemouth to do well. Like Everton, yeah. The thing with Everton is it's very game state dependent. If they concede one early, but then against Man City they did concede early, and then they still held on. They still did well. So I would back Semenyo. Like I would say, this is why I wouldn't be on Joao Pedro to Chris Wood, because you'd be benching Semenyo. Then why do you have Semenyo?
As an
And
eighth
then the other
attacker,
thing
pretty
is,
much. It's like your
yeah.
Rodgers, he only gets points from the first bench.
Exactly. You saw what I did, right? I played Bruno. It works. So I don't know. I just think Gordon is there, man, for the taking this week. Like I would save, to be clear, in your position as well. But I would be more tempted if I was to do a move than to get a Gordon, then a Chris Wood and benching Semenyo, than to just upgrading Semenyo for the foreseeable. Because after this week, Bournemouth's fixtures, away to Chelsea, away to Newcastle, then you have Forest, then you have Liverpool. When will you play Semenyo?
Nothing. He'll be my perma benchy after that. Pretty much.
So then next week you'll have to play Chris Wood
home to Liverpool.
Liverpool.
Which I don't mind as much. Again, he's a talisman, but obviously the ceiling does feel a bit low. And what I could do with this way is I could bench Semenyo next week, play Joao Pedro, and then have like 3 transfers in 22 and make a better decision on Arsenal, etc. And again, there's a better entry point for Chris Wood then as well against Southampton. So getting a bit more information just does feel a bit more appealing.
I mean, it's fine. You've avoided all the guys who got banned, so I think it's not the worst to save.
Yep, I think save is more likely, but I'm very tempted by shipping Semenyo to Gordon. I think closer to that than the Chris Wood, but again, I don't want to lock myself out of the Chris Wood option. So that's why saving up is. I'm just not a fan of the Semenyo pick. I'm just waiting to get him out of my team. That's what it comes down to, really. Just very frustrating. Right. Your team?
There's some super chats as well. Yes, we can get to it after my team. So I've got Raya, Robinson, Gabriel, and Trent. So no change in defense. In midfield, I've got Sarr, Salah, and Palmer. Then I've upgraded Rodgers to Gordon. And I'm playing Bruno, but I'm not sure between Bruno and Joao Pedro right now. I think I'll play one of them. We'll see. Where we come.
Bit of heart over head over here, I think, Pras.
Honestly, if I was to play like that, I would start Joao Pedro, because I'll be happy if Bruno does anything anyway, even from my bench. So, and anyway, I like it. Like if Bruno scores a brace, let's say he's on my bench and he scores a brace, then what does everybody do next week? They're all buying Bruno. So I don't mind bench points, like if it happens something in that scenario. So, but that's a separate thing. I think I'll go back to what I'm hearing. Like already I know that Brighton don't have a fit striker. So I think Joao Pedro's route to points a little bit constrained when he's playing up top. So, but he's playing 90 minutes. So anyway, as it stands, I'll probably keep it like this.
And then at the odds. Sorry, let's just compare the odds, because this is a decision for a lot of people. Brighton are at 1.13, and Manchester United are
only
0.88. So slightly better odds for Brighton, naturally being the home team. But again, goal share, you'd expect Bruno to be a bit more involved.
Exactly. So, I mean, in reality, both probably blank. So anyway, I did Cunha to Wood. And so Isak is the vice captain. So this is the team. The idea is basically, now that I've done this, I've done it for a -4. It's first hit of the season, because I could not afford it. Both Wood and Gordon were going up, and I had 0.0 in the bank. So I had to do it. And there were no midweek games, basically, apart from Arsenal. So I did it. Idea is, if there's no injuries, I'm not making a transfer now until the double, which is basically Gameweek 24-25. So I would basically try to save 4 transfers, and then take it from there. I've got a rotation with Joao Pedro and Chris Wood. I can still play either of them if there's an injury or something else happens. I've got a nice rotation with Robinson and Munoz. I could even play Munoz next week and Robinson. There's lots of options. I think I've got a good first and second bench where I don't need to do much with the team going forward.
Yeah, the squad does look fairly robust now going forward. And like you said, with your position, your rank, Chris Wood does make a lot more sense.
Yep.
Let's address the super chats. First one from Subhajit Bhattacharya. Worth getting Jimenez for Pedro on free. I think we discussed that. Pedro's much more reliable, 90 minutes, routes to points, etc. I think Pedro's a better pick than Jimenez.
Exactly. I would not. I mean, he's trying to sell Pedro for Jimenez. I mean, there's other midfield. We talked about a lot of other strikers we like over Jimenez, so those could be options if you wanted to sell, but not otherwise.
Exactly. Now, Emre Kappa, Happy New Year, guys. Thank you, Emre. Wish you the same. Bench one, Enzo or draw Pedro? Slightly trickier.
Yeah.
What do you think?
You tell me, will Enzo be as threatening? Was there anything in it in terms of the formation?
I'd back a centre forward plus over a midfielder in this case. Enzo has a few routes to points. It's a home game for Pedro. I don't think Enzo will be as advanced against Palace necessarily. With penalties, home game, etc. I think Pedro's the one.
I would agree.
Now, from Kiran Naidu, options in order of preference. He has 3 free transfers. He wants to sell Cunha, Semenyo, and Rea. So he can go for Jackson, Gordon, or Henderson. I think I can't really tell what he's saying. Cunha, Semenyo to Jesus or Sao, Cunha to Jackson. And Rea is his sole Arsenal player. Okay, so he basically wants to ask whether he should use 3 transfers or 2. In which case, okay, so he can do. I think Cunha to Semenyo to Jesus to Sar is one option, or Cunha just to Jackson. And keep
I like
Semenyo.
second one. I mean, I had the option. I did exactly this. I could have gone Cunha to Jackson, or I did Cunha to Wood, and another.
I wouldn't mess around with
to...
the keeper necessarily at all. So let the keeper position go. So it would either be 2 or 3.
Exactly.
Yep. Again, because Semenyo's fixtures turn after this. Jesus we discussed already, high upside, so the second one.
Yep.
Last one from Zubin Johari. Happy New Year, guys. Thank you, Zubin. Same to you. Roll or sell Ode or Semenyo for Gordon? It's what we discussed in my team.
Semenyo for Gordon could be tempting. Odegaard, I'm like, if you've got him, same for Bruno. Like, there's 2 school of thoughts, right? You could say, okay, are you being rigid?
Yeah,
stubborn, and saying, oh, I don't want to sell. But at the same time, are you really giving up after 2 weeks?
I'd give it one more game week, like we discussed, right? You get the 3 game weeks of data on Arsenal. Give Odegaard 1 more week and see how he plays in the next 3 matches if he has sort of goal involvements over there. Because again,
Agreed.
Gordon, while it's Spurs away, Spurs haven't been pulling up trees. It doesn't feel as high ceiling as, let's say, the next few fixtures where he has Wolves at home, etc.
Fair. Yep, that's sensible, I think.
Cool. Let's wrap up, Pras.
All right, excellent. First pod of 2025. Thank you for joining. There's about 900 people listening, so thank you very much for keeping the support. Really appreciate it, and do hit the like and subscribe button while you're here. We have a target to reach 40K by the end of the season. Let's see if we can make it. With your support, we might. And wish everybody a very good. Oh, there's another. See, if I do a long exit, then there's another super chat. What do you think about Bruno plus Pedro to Sar and Jackson? You tell me.
I like it. I don't like keeping faith in Bruno. I think it's just too much money you're tying up in a team that's not so functional. I think you're getting 2 upgrades there.
Go for it then.
Go for it. I'm just glad there were no cricket questions. There are a few comments prior to the pod discussing the cricket, so glad we didn't touch upon that.
Exactly. Well, we'll be fine. Sydney turns.
Yeah, there's a bit of controversy with Rohit Sharma's spot also, which is getting quite spicy, so should be an interesting few days. Great talking to you again, Pras. LR will be back with us next week. So I think the next pod, we'll let you guys know the timing. It'll probably be, it's a bit of a strange thing because you don't have any games next weekend, but you have the Tuesday, so we can't really leave the pod to a Monday. And I don't think we'll gain much from the FA Cup next week anyway. So we'll probably go, I think,
back end of
Wednesday,
next
Thursday. Back in our usual shit. Right, guys. Thanks for joining. See you again next week. Have a great year.
See you.